Good evening. I hope you're somewhere comfortable right now. Maybe in bed, or on a couch with a blanket that's just the right weight. Not too heavy, not too light. The kind of blanket that makes you feel like you're being held, but gently, like a hug from someone who knows when to let go. I'm going to talk to you about aliens tonight, and I know what you might be thinking. That doesn't sound very relaxing. Aliens are supposed to be scary, or at least exciting, but I don't think they have to be. I think if we talk about them the right way, at the right pace, they can be just another thing to think about before sleep. Like counting sheep, except the sheep are from a distant star system, and maybe have different ideas about what grass should taste like. I got thinking about aliens last Tuesday. It was a regular Tuesday. I had oatmeal for breakfast. The kind you cook on the stove, not the instant kind, because I've found that the 17 minutes it takes to make proper oatmeal is exactly the right amount of time to ease into a morning. Any faster and the day comes at you too quick. I added a little cinnamon and some raisins that had been in my cupboard since last fall. They were still good. Raisins last a long time. That's one of their best qualities. After breakfast, I took my usual walk. I live in Michigan, in a small town you've probably never heard of, and that's okay. It's the kind of place where people wave at you from their cars, even if they don't know you, just because you're both there, existing in the same moment, on the same street, and that feels like enough reason to acknowledge each other. The sky was very clear that morning. Blue. The kind of blue that makes you understand why people used to think heaven was just above the clouds. Because when the sky is that blue, it does feel like something is up there. Something good. And I thought, someone could be looking down at me right now. Not God necessarily, though maybe God too, but I mean someone from up there. Way up there. Past the clouds, past the atmosphere, past where the satellites float around taking pictures of weather patterns and listening to our phone calls. Though I've been told they don't really listen to phone calls. That's just something people say when they want to feel more interesting than they are. Someone from another planet might be looking at Earth right now, at this very moment, and seeing this little town in Michigan, and seeing me walking past the hardware store where they still have the Christmas lights up. And I wonder what they'd think. Would they understand that we're doing our best? I hope so. The thing about aliens is that we've been thinking about them for a long time, longer than you might expect. I was at the library last month. I go every other Thursday to return books and pick up new ones. The library is one of the best things we have, I think. This idea that knowledge should just be free and available, and you can just walk in and borrow it like a cup of sugar from a neighbor. And I found a book about the history of aliens in human culture. Turns out people have been imagining beings from other worlds for thousands of years. The ancient Greeks wrote about people living on the moon. In the 1700s, a famous astronomer named William Herschel thought there were aliens living inside the sun. Inside the sun, you might be thinking, wouldn't they burn up? And yes, they would. But back then, people didn't know that yet. They were working with the information they had, which is all any of us can do, really. In the 1800s, people thought there were canals on Mars. They looked through telescopes and saw what they thought were straight lines, and they said, "Those must be canals. You know what canals mean? Civilization." And everyone got very excited about the civilized Martians and what they might be like and whether we should try to contact them. Turned out the lines weren't canals. They weren't anything really, just the way our eyes and brains work together. When we're looking at something far away and want very badly to see something specific, our brains are helpful like that. Maybe too helpful sometimes. But I don't think it was stupid believing in the Martian canals. I think it was hopeful. I think people wanted to believe that we weren't alone, that somewhere out there was someone else also building things and digging channels for water and trying to figure out how to live on their planet, just like we're trying to figure out how to live on ours. We're still trying to figure that out. When I was in 5th grade, my teacher, Mrs. Whitmore, who always smelled like coffee and vanilla, a combination I found very comforting. She told us that the universe is so big that mathematically there almost have to be aliens. She said there are billions of stars just in our galaxy, and billions of galaxies in the universe, and many of those stars have planets, and some of those planets are probably the right temperature and the right distance from their star. And on some of those planets, something probably started living. I remember raising my hand and asking, "Does that mean we're not special?" And Mrs. Whitmore looked at me for a long moment. She had very kind eyes. She said, "No, it means the universe is full of special things. It means special isn't as rare as we thought, and that's wonderful. I've thought about that a lot over the years." Let me tell you about the Voyager spacecrafts. In 1977, NASA launched 2 unmanned spacecrafts called Voyager 1 and Voyager 2. Their mission was to explore the outer planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then just keep going, out into space, forever. But before they launched them, a group of scientists got together and decided to put something special on board, just in case. Just in case sometime in the distant future, these spacecrafts drift past some alien planet and someone there finds them and wonders what they are and where they came from. They put together what they called the Golden Record. It's an actual record, a vinyl record like the kind people used to play music on, except this one is made of gold-plated copper, so it will last a very long time. Billions of years, theoretically, longer than anything else humans have made, longer than the pyramids will last, longer than Mount Rushmore, longer than any of us. And on this record, they put sounds from Earth. They included greetings in 55 different languages. They included sounds of nature, thunder, rain, birds, whales singing. They included human sounds, a heartbeat, laughter, a kiss, footsteps. They included music, Bach, Mozart, Chuck Berry, music from all over the world, Peruvian panpipes and Bulgarian folk songs, and a Navajo chant and Johnny B. Good. And they included 116 pictures that show what Earth is like and what we're like. Pictures of humans of all different kinds, pictures of animals and plants, pictures of mountains and oceans, a picture of a family sitting down to dinner, a picture of someone licking an ice cream cone, a picture of a violin with a music score. They were trying to say, this is us, this is Earth, this is what it's like to be alive here. Voyager 1 is now over 15 billion miles from Earth. That's so far away that if you could drive there in a car going 60 miles per hour, it would take you about 28,000 years. You'd want to bring snacks. It's in interstellar space now. That means it's left our solar system. It's in the space between the stars, and it's still going, and it will keep going for millions, maybe billions of years, long after our sun has burned out and Earth is gone, and there's no one left who remembers that we were ever here, except for that record, that golden record, spinning through the darkness, waiting. I find that very beautiful. Sometimes I imagine what it would be like if aliens did find it. If millions of years from now, some being on some distant world sees this strange golden disk floating past their planet, and they bring it inside, and they figure out how to play it, and they hear thunder for the first time, and a human heartbeat and Chuck Berry singing about Johnny B. Good deep down in Louisiana close to New Orleans, I wonder if they'd understand it. I wonder if they'd think, these beings, these humans, they wanted to be known. They wanted to reach out. They didn't want to be alone. I wonder if they'd think, we understand that feeling. You know, there's a guy who lives 2 streets over from me named Dennis, and Dennis has a satellite dish in his backyard. It's very big. He told me once that he uses it to listen to the sky. He's part of something called SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. It's a program where regular people can volunteer their time and their computers to help analyze radio signals from space, looking for patterns that might indicate intelligent life. Dennis sits in his garage in the evenings, wearing headphones, listening to static from stars, whose names he can't pronounce, hoping to hear something that isn't random, some pattern, some rhythm, some indication that someone out there is trying to say hello. I asked him once if he ever gets discouraged, if it ever feels pointless, listening to all that static, all that silence. He said, "You know, I've been listening for 14 years. I've never heard anything unusual. But you know what? I don't mind. Because while I'm listening, I feel connected to something bigger. I'm part of a conversation, even if no one's talking yet. Even if no one ever talks. I'm participating in the question, and sometimes the question is enough." I thought that was nice. Dennis also makes very good beef jerky. These two facts are unrelated, but they're both true. Let me tell you about the Drake equation. In 1961, a scientist named Frank Drake came up with an equation to estimate how many intelligent civilizations might exist in our galaxy. It's not a regular math equation, where you just plug in numbers and get an answer. It's more like a way of organizing the question. You start with the number of stars in the galaxy, then you multiply by the fraction of stars that have planets, then the number of planets per star that might support life, then the fraction of those where life actually develops, then the fraction where life becomes intelligent, then the fraction that develops technology we could detect, then the length of time such civilizations release detectable signals into space. When you multiply all these fractions together, you get different answers depending on what numbers you use. Some people's math says there should be millions of alien civilizations in our galaxy. Some people's math says there might only be us. We don't know which is true yet. But here's what I think about sometimes. Even if we're alone, even if we're the only ones, that doesn't mean we're lonely. Being alone and being lonely are different things. You can be alone and still feel connected to everything else that exists. You can be alone and still matter. And even if we're not alone, even if there are a million other civilizations out there, each one is still special in its own way. Each one still has its own songs and its own thunder, and its own version of Chuck Berry. We contain multitudes, as someone once said. And by we, I mean all of us. Earth and whoever else is out there. When I was younger, I used to worry a lot about whether aliens would be friendly or not. I'd seen the movies. I knew how it usually went. The aliens come, and they're either cute and want to phone home, or they're not cute and want to destroy everything. But as I've gotten older, I've started to think maybe it's not that simple. Maybe aliens would be like us. Some of them kind, some of them not so kind. Some of them just trying to get through their day without causing any problems. Maybe they have traffic on their planet. Maybe they have a version of Tuesday. Maybe they also stand in their kitchens in the morning, waiting for water to boil, thinking about whether they remembered to send that important message, or whether anyone would notice if they wore the same thing 2 days in a row. Maybe being alive is more similar than we think, no matter where you are or what you look like. That's what I'd like to believe anyway. There's a place in Puerto Rico. Well, there was a place in Puerto Rico called the Arecibo Observatory. It was a giant radio telescope built into a natural sinkhole. The dish was 1,000 feet across. For many years, it was the largest single-aperture telescope in the world. In 1974, scientists used it to send a message into space. They aimed it at a cluster of stars about 25,000 light-years away. The message contained information about humanity, our numbers, our DNA structure, our solar system, what we look like. If anyone receives that message and decides to respond, we'll get their answer in about 50,000 years. That means whoever sent that message knew they would never receive a reply. Their children wouldn't receive a reply. Their children's children wouldn't receive a reply. The reply would come so far in the future that humans might be completely different by then, or might not exist at all. But they sent it anyway. They said, "We're here. We existed. We tried." The telescope collapsed in 2020. It fell apart in the hurricane season. It can't listen anymore, and it can't send messages anymore. When I heard about that, I felt sad in a way that surprised me. I'd never been there. I'd only seen pictures. But knowing it was gone felt like something important had been lost, like we'd stopped reaching out. But then I remembered all the other telescopes, all the other listening posts, all the other people, like Dennis in garages and observatories around the world, still listening, still looking up. We haven't stopped reaching out. We just keep doing it in different ways. I want to tell you about the Fermi paradox, but I promise I'll make it relaxing. The Fermi paradox is named after a physicist named Enrico Fermi, who one day in 1950 was having lunch with some colleagues, and they were talking about aliens, and Fermi suddenly said, "Where is everybody?" What he meant was, if the universe is so big and so old, and if intelligent life is even remotely common, then why haven't we seen or heard from anyone yet? Where are all the aliens? Scientists have come up with lots of possible answers to this question. Maybe aliens exist, but they're too far away. Maybe they exist, but they're not interested in contacting us. Maybe they exist, but they communicate in ways we haven't figured out how to detect yet. Maybe they existed in the past, but they're all gone now. Maybe they exist in the future, but haven't evolved yet. Maybe life is much, much rarer than we think. Or maybe, and this is the one that makes me feel both small and strangely comforted, maybe we're the first. Maybe in the entire history of this universe, which is 13.8 billion years old, we're the first ones to look up and ask, is anyone there? Maybe we're the first ones to make music and art, and put it on a golden record, and send it out into the darkness, hoping someone will find it. If that's true, then we have a responsibility. We're the ones who start the conversation. We're the ones who say hello first. We're the ones who show what's possible. I hope we do a good job. Let me tell you a story. Last summer, I went camping by myself up near Lake Superior. I don't usually go camping alone, but my friend Mike, who I usually go with, had to cancel because of his daughter's recital, and I'd already taken the time off work, so I thought, why not? I drove up on a Friday evening and found a spot far from other campers. I set up my tent. It took longer than it should have because I'd forgotten how the poles worked, but I figured it out eventually. I always do. I made dinner on my camp stove, just a can of soup and some bread. Simple but satisfying. After dinner, I sat outside my tent as the sun went down. I didn't have a campfire. I'd forgotten to bring firewood, and I felt too tired to gather any. So I just sat there in the dark, listening to the woods around me. An owl somewhere, wind in the pine trees, the lake lapping at the shore, and then I looked up. I've seen the stars before, of course. Everyone has. But in the city, or even in my small town, you don't see all of them. There's too much light. Your eyes adjust to the street lamps and the porch lights and the glow from people's windows, and you see only the brightest stars, the ones that can compete. But out there, far from everything, I saw them all. There were so many stars. More stars than sky, it seemed. The Milky Way was a river of light stretching from horizon to horizon. I could see individual stars, and I could see clouds of stars so distant they blurred together. I could see different colors, Some stars blue, some white, some yellow, some red. And I lay down on the ground, right there on the dirt and pine needles. And I looked up and I thought, someone could be out there right now, on a planet orbiting one of those stars. Maybe they're also lying on the ground, looking up, seeing our sun as just one more point of light in their sky. Maybe they're also alone. Maybe they're also wondering, I stayed like that for a long time. Long enough that I got cold, but I didn't want to move. I felt like if I moved, I'd break something. Some connection, some understanding. Eventually, I did get up. Because I had to. Because I'm human. And humans get cold and uncomfortable and need to go to the bathroom. But I remembered that feeling, that sense of being small and huge at the same time. Small because I was just one person on one planet in one galaxy among billions. Huge because I was part of all of it. My atoms came from stars. The iron in my blood was forged in the heart of some long-dead sun. I was made of the universe, and the universe was made of the same stuff as me. We're all star stuff, as Carl Sagan said, all of us. Everyone you've ever met, everyone you've ever loved, everyone who's ever annoyed you in traffic or been kind to you in a grocery store. All made of stars. And if there are aliens out there, they're made of stars too. We're all related in the biggest family tree possible. I think sometimes people are afraid of aliens because they're afraid of the unknown. And I understand that. The unknown can be scary. You don't know what it wants or what it will do. But the unknown can also be wonderful. When I was 7 years old, my family moved from one town to another, just 30 miles away. But when you're 7, that might as well be another planet. I had to leave my school and my friends and my bedroom that I'd decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. I remember being very upset about those stars. I'd spent hours putting them up in exactly the right pattern. Not any real constellation, just a pattern that felt right to me. And now someone else would sleep under them. Some other kid would look up at my stars. On our first night in the new house, I couldn't sleep. My room was wrong. The shadows were wrong. The sounds were wrong. I could hear different birds outside. Even the air smelled different. My dad came in and sat on the edge of my bed. He said, "Want to go for a walk?" We walked around the new neighborhood in our pajamas. It was late, maybe 10 or 11 o'clock, and the streets were empty. My dad pointed out different things. That house has a dog you'll probably meet. That tree is perfect for climbing. That store on the corner makes good milkshakes. And then he pointed up. He said, "Look, the stars are the same." And they were. The same stars I'd been looking at in our old town. The Big Dipper, Orion, all of them, exactly where they'd always been. He said, "No matter where you go, the stars are the same. You're never really lost." I thought about that recently and realized wherever aliens are, if they exist, they're looking at different stars than us. Their sky is completely different. They have their own constellations, their own patterns, their own stories about what the lights in the darkness mean. But they're still looking up. That's the same. We're both looking up, wondering, hoping, trying to make sense of it all. There's a concept in astronomy called the habitable zone. It's the area around a star where a planet could potentially support liquid water, which we think is necessary for life as we know it. Not too close to the star, or the water boils away. Not too far, or it freezes, just right. Earth is in our sun's habitable zone. We got lucky, or maybe not lucky. Maybe the universe is full of habitable zones, full of planets that are just right, full of water and life, and beings looking up at their night sky, asking the same questions we ask. I like to think about what their version of Earth might be like. Maybe their planet is mostly ocean, and they live on floating cities, and they think of land the way we think of space. as this vast, mostly empty expanse that's difficult to survive in. Maybe their planet has 3 moons, and their tides are completely different from ours, and they have a much more complicated relationship with the ocean as a result. Maybe their planet rotates slower, and their days are longer, and they've evolved to need less sleep, or maybe they need more sleep, or maybe they don't sleep at all, and they find the idea of consciousness just shutting off for 8 hours absolutely terrifying. Maybe they're not even carbon-based. Maybe they're silicon-based, or something we haven't thought of yet, and they find our squishy bodies very strange. Maybe they don't have bodies at all. Maybe they're clouds of particles that think collectively. Maybe they're energy beings. Maybe they exist in dimensions we can't perceive. Maybe they're right here and we just can't see them. I had a dream once about aliens, and I want to tell you about it because it was very peaceful, which is rare for dreams. Usually my dreams are about showing up to work and realizing I forgot to put pants on, or about my teeth falling out, or about trying to run but my legs don't work right. But this dream was different. In the dream, I was walking through my neighborhood at dusk, that in-between time when it's not quite day and not quite night, and everything looks soft and possible. I was walking past familiar houses, the Johnsons' house with the garden gnomes, the Petersons' house with the wind chimes that sound like a gentle laugh, and then I turned a corner, and there was a spaceship. It wasn't a big silver saucer or anything dramatic. It was small, about the size of a car, and it was parked on the street like someone was just visiting. It was humming quietly, the way a refrigerator hums, and it had lights that pulsed slowly, in and out, like breathing. And standing next to it was an alien. In the dream, this didn't surprise me at all. I walked up and said hello, and the alien said hello back, except they didn't say it with words. They said it with colors somehow. I don't know how to explain that, but I understood. We stood there for a while, not saying anything, just existing together. The alien was looking at the sunset. Earth was having a particularly nice sunset that evening, all oranges and pinks, and I felt proud, the way you feel proud when you show someone your home and they appreciate it. Eventually I asked, using words because that's all I had, "Did you come a long way?" And the alien said, with their colors, "Yes, very far." "Are you tired?" I asked. "Yes," they said, "but it's worth it." "Your planet is beautiful." "Thank you," I said. "Would you like some water or something to eat?" "I don't know what you eat." The alien made a color that I understood was laughter. "No, thank you. I should go soon. I have others to visit. But I wanted to stop here first. I wanted to see what hope looks like." "Hope?" I said. "Your species," they said. "You're young. Very young. You've made mistakes. But you're still trying. Still reaching out. Still looking up. That's hope." And then they got back in their spaceship, and it lifted up very gently, barely making any sound, and they waved. Or did something that I understood as waving, and they left. I woke up feeling calm. I don't usually remember my dreams, and I don't usually put much stock in them, but I remembered this one. I still remember it now, and sometimes when I'm feeling discouraged about people, or the world, or the news, I think about that dream, and the alien made of colors telling me we're still trying. We are still trying. That counts for something. You know what I think would be funny? If we finally make contact with aliens, and it turns out they also make bad movies about us. Like we've been making movies where aliens come to Earth and invade us, or study us, or accidentally crash here and need help getting home. And maybe they've been making movies where Earth aliens come to their planet and do the same things. Maybe there's some alien filmmaker who made a big blockbuster about terrifying humans who arrive in giant spaceships and demand to speak to their leader, and all the alien children watch it and have nightmares about humans. Maybe there's an alien version of E.T. where a cute little human gets stranded on their planet and befriends an alien child, and they ride bicycles together across their moons. Maybe they also argue about which movies are realistic and which ones are silly. Maybe they also have scientists who watch the movies and say, "That's not how humans would actually work," and everyone else says, "It's just a movie, let it be fun." I hope they do. I hope when we finally meet, we can share our movies with each other and laugh about how wrong we both were. Let me tell you about a radio signal called the WOW signal. On August 15th, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up a strong narrowband radio signal from space. It lasted for 72 seconds. The signal was so unusual and so interesting that the astronomer who was reviewing the data wrote, "Wow," in the margin of the printout. The signal appeared to come from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. It had all the characteristics of an interstellar signal. It was the kind of signal SETI researchers had been hoping to find. They tried to find it again. They pointed telescopes at the same spot in the sky over and over for years. They never heard it again. It was just that one time. Those 72 seconds. We still don't know what it was. Maybe it was aliens saying hello. Maybe it was some natural phenomenon we don't understand yet. Maybe it was interference from a satellite. Maybe it was something else entirely. But for 72 seconds, we had something that might have been a message from another world. And even though we never heard it again, even though we couldn't decode it or respond to it, those 72 seconds were enough to keep people looking, to keep people hoping. Sometimes that's all you need. One moment where you think, maybe I'm not alone. Maybe someone else is out there also listening, also hoping. One wow is enough to keep you going for a long time. I think my favorite thing about the search for extraterrestrial life is how patient it is. We're not talking about quick results. We're not checking our phones every 5 minutes to see if aliens have texted us back. We're talking about decades, centuries, maybe millennia of listening and looking and hoping. That kind of patience is rare these days. Everything else in our lives is fast. Fast food, fast internet, fast shipping, fast fashion. We're used to getting what we want quickly, and if we don't get it quickly, we get frustrated. But you can't rush the universe. The universe works on its own timeline. And that timeline is very, very long. Light from the nearest star. Besides, our sun takes over 4 years to reach us. Light from the other side of our galaxy takes 100,000 years. Light from the nearest galaxy takes 2.5 million years. If someone from the other side of the galaxy sent us a message today, using light or radio waves or whatever method they have, that message wouldn't arrive for 100,000 years. And if we sent a message back immediately, our reply wouldn't reach them for another 100,000 years. That's a long time to wait for a response. But we're sending messages anyway. We're listening anyway, because the act of reaching out matters, regardless of whether anyone reaches back. The trying is the point. Sometimes I imagine what I would say if I could send a message to aliens. I'd probably start with, "Hello. I'm from a planet called Earth. I'm a human. I live in Michigan, which is a part of a country called the United States, which is on a continent called North America, which is on Earth, which orbits a star we call the Sun, which is in a galaxy called the Milky Way, which is in a universe we're still trying to understand. I teach choir at a middle school. I drink decaf coffee. I like to take walks. I watch the birds at my bird feeder every morning while I eat breakfast. I have a favorite mug. I know every bump and crack in the sidewalk between my house and the grocery store. My life is small in the context of the universe, but it feels big to me. I guess I'd want them to know that. That even though we're small, our lives feel important to us. Our relationships matter. Our breakfasts matter. Our morning walks matter. I'd want them to know that we're trying to be good. Some of us anyway. A lot of us. We don't always succeed, but we're trying. We're figuring it out as we go. We're doing the best we can with the information we have and the time we've been given. I'd want to know the same about them, not just the big things. What their planet is like, what their technology is like, but the small things too. What they eat, what they think about, whether they have something like music, whether they have something like love, whether they also sometimes stand outside at night, looking up, feeling small and huge at the same time. You know what's interesting? The more we learn about the universe, the more we find that life is resilient. We used to think life could only exist in very specific conditions. A planet had to be exactly the right temperature, with exactly the right atmosphere, with exactly the right amount of water. But then we found life in places we never expected. We found bacteria living miles underground, in total darkness, feeding on rocks. We found organisms in Antarctica, living in ice. We found creatures near volcanic vents at the bottom of the ocean, in water so hot and acidic it would kill us instantly. We found tardigrades, these tiny animals that can survive in the vacuum of space. Life finds a way. Life is stubborn. That makes me think life elsewhere in the universe is more likely than we used to believe. Maybe we're not looking in the right places. Maybe we're not asking the right questions. Maybe life is everywhere, in forms we haven't imagined yet. Maybe the universe is full of life, and we're just now learning how to see it. Let me tell you what I hope happens in my lifetime. I hope we find something. Some evidence of life elsewhere. It doesn't have to be intelligent life. It doesn't have to be aliens with spaceships who want to chat. It could be bacteria on Mars. It could be amino acids on a moon of Saturn. It could be a molecule in the atmosphere of a distant planet that could only be produced by living things. Just something. Some confirmation that we're not alone. I think that would change things. Not in dramatic ways, maybe. People would still have to go to work and pay bills and figure out what to make for dinner. But underneath it all, there'd be this knowledge. We're not alone. Life is bigger than us. The universe is full of possibilities. I think we'd be kinder to each other, knowing that. I think we'd take better care of our planet, knowing how special and rare and precious life is. Or maybe we wouldn't change at all. Maybe we'd just keep being who we are, for better and worse. But I'd like to know, either way, I'd like to know before I die that there's someone else out there, also living, also wondering, even if they're just bacteria, even if they're just tiny organisms doing their best in some alien ocean. That would be enough. It's getting late now, or early, depending on how you look at it. The time when the night is deepest, right before the first hint of morning. The time when the world is quietest. When even the nocturnal animals are settling down, and the diurnal ones haven't woken up yet, and there's just this pause, this breath. This is a good time to think about aliens, because in this quiet, you can imagine them better. You can imagine their worlds, their lives, their questions. You can imagine them also lying in the dark, if they have dark, if they have lying, wondering about us the way we wonder about them. You can imagine a universe full of wondering, full of trying, full of hope. Before you fall asleep, I want you to know something. You're made of stars, literally. The atoms in your body were forged in the hearts of ancient stars that exploded billions of years ago. Your calcium, your iron, your carbon, all of it was made in stars. You are the universe experiencing itself. You are the cosmos looking back at itself. You are stardust that woke up one day and learned to think and feel and wonder. And somewhere out there, if aliens exist, they're made of stars too. Different stars, maybe, but stars nonetheless. We're all connected in this vast, ancient, beautiful web of existence. And even if we never meet, even if we're separated by impossible distances and impossible time scales, even if we never hear each other's messages or see each other's worlds, we're still part of the same universe. We're still reaching out into the darkness, hoping someone is there. And that reaching out, that hope, that's what makes us alive. Good night, sleep well. And if you dream, I hope you dream of stars, and beings made of colors, and golden records spinning through the darkness, carrying our songs to places we'll never see. I hope you dream of reaching out, and I hope you dream of someone reaching back. The universe is big and old and full of mysteries, but it's also full of us, and them, and everyone else who's ever looked up and wondered. We're all here together. All of us, under the same stars. Good night.